Blessings, blessings, Shabbat Shalom to you and your family too. We are live and direct all the way from NorCal. We are excited to be here today on this great and grand Shabbat. Another opportunity to give praise and honor and glory to Yeshua HaMashiach, who is our Lord and our Savior, who is the first and the last, the beginning and the end. We're excited once again. We're excited once again to just to be here. Had a late night last night, kind of a late night last night. We had a back-to-back. Actually, we're having a back-to-back. Today, we were on last night with a special Shabbat, opening of Shabbat Bible study. And now we are back this morning to further go into Shabbat. And we're going to be continuing with our lesson that we started last night. And so I pray that you still have your notes. I pray that you are ready. I'm ready. Right? You stay ready. You don't have to get ready. So we want to jump right in. Today, we're going to give people a chance to come into the building. And we're excited once again to bring to you the word of Yah. And so join in. Go ahead and like the video and share the live, if you will. Go to all our platforms if you can, and thumb up the video and share the live. All right. And so that's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to start it off. You see the title, you see what it is. It's just part 2. That's all it is. It's part 2. We're going to knock that other leg off. And I think we did a pretty good job. Last night of chopping that first leg off. And you know, I'm really excited, y'all, about what is going down. You know, I think studying to show yourself approved is honestly, I honestly believe that it has more to do with our relationship with Yah. In other words, the more closely we walk with Abba Yah, I believe the more he can trust us with. The humility factor. When you get close to Yah, you cannot help but to be humble in his presence. And I believe that not to be true because I read it, but man, sometimes Abba Yah has to show you yourself. And he can't do that when you're around your friends, when you're around, you know, people who are just as sinful as we are. Sometimes he has to isolate you and allow you to really see yourself. And so, you ever seen yourself in the presence of Yah? What did Isaiah say when the presence of the Lord filled the temple? Okay, Isaiah said, "Woe is me." Okay, Isaiah realized and recognized that in the presence of an all holy and righteous Yah, he was in trouble. His stock fell. Okay, and so that should be the same feeling, the same conclusion that we come to when it comes to being in the presence of the Lord. All right. So go ahead and invite your friends. Go ahead and thumb up the video, share the live, go to our Facebook pages. Okay. And thumb up the video and share the live on your page as well. All right. And so we're going to just get started just in a bit. I do want to give people an opportunity to follow in and to join in, I should say, and follow. to follow in. Okay. So join in and to follow in. All right. So go ahead and do that for us while we are preparing to get ready for this lesson, man. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to knock the other leg off as well. All right. We're going to knock that other leg off today. We kind of mentioned it last night, but we're really gonna dive in and get it in tonight, this morning. Good grief. So once again, go ahead and like the video and share this live. All right. And so you see the title, you see what it is. Thank you for those of you who have already joined in. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Hopefully you have your notes ready. You have everything ready to knock this second leg out, or to break this second leg as it relates to addressing these missing links in particular doctrines or beliefs. If you didn't catch the video last night, you're going to have to tune in last night to really get an understanding of what we're going to be dealing with, right? And so I hope that you will tune in to that lesson last night. But we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to get started and jump right in. Okay. So as I shared last night, there's an issue in the Christian church. We are Hebrew Israelites, okay? And there are various, people, when they hear that, they have associations that they make, okay? They associate. When you hear that word, you associate a certain belief, certain behaviors. And really what they're doing is they're making assumptions about who you are as a believer. Now, if I were to do the same thing with Christians and assume that just because they're Christians that they, that they go to a booth and confess their sins to a father behind the booth, they would say, oh, no, we don't do that. That's not us. No, we don't do that. Or if I were to associate that they say Hail Marys to the mother of Yeshua, they would say, oh, no, that's not us. We don't do that. But yet they still are under the Christianity flag. And so it's the same idea here, that you can't just assume that just because someone is a Hebrew Israelite, that number one, they're not saved. Number two, their doctrine is false. And number three, that they're not orthodox. Okay. And so we claim that we have more of the truth than our Christian counterparts. I shouldn't even say counterparts. I should say our Christian brothers. And so what we're trying to do is come into unity, as Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. He says, I want you to all think alike. Okay. When it comes to the doctrine, when it comes to the teachings. And so that is the attempt, that we can not only have unity amongst the brethren, but that we can live this unity so that our light can be as bright as it can, so that the unbelievers will not only see the unity, but the unity in the truth. All right. And so that's what our goal is, to bring unity in the truth. And so here we go. Many Christians believe that because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach, the new covenant, which is the first leg that we dealt with last night, replaced the old covenant. And we showed and proved last night that is just simply not true. We looked at Hebrews chapter 8, and we tied that into actually Hebrews chapter 8, verse 10 also. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 8 and 10. And then we looked at that in light of Matthew chapter 5, verse 18, which many Christians translate that as a literal translation. And it's only because we're not familiar with the Hebrew culture. And so if you're familiar with the Hebrew culture, we're so removed from the Hebrew culture, we don't know why Yeshua used parables. We don't know why he taught and used idioms, and why Yeshua used the examples that he used, but the culture and the people that lived during his time understood. And so we have to really back up when it comes to understanding the gospels through a culturally relevant lens. In other words, we have to make sure that when we read the gospels, and really, to be honest, if you look at the Old Testament, so-called Old Testament, and much of the Brit Hadashah, I would say, in my opinion, 90% of the text in the Bible is written in Hebrew culture. 90%. I would say at least 90%. And as a result of that, you're going to have ideas. Now, people will say, oh, wasn't the New Testament written in Greek? Yes, but the culture was not Greek. The culture that Yeshua followed wasn't Greek. The culture that his followers and those that lived in Jerusalem and surrounding areas was not Greek. All right. Their culture was Hebrew. And so they understood in Hebrew. They communicated in Hebrew and Aramaic. The vast majority of their communication was not in Greek. It was indeed either Aramaic or Hebrew. And so as a result, we see this Hebrew culture permeating the text of the New Testament. But it's our job to make sure that we are exegeting the culture as well, if you will. And so we dealt with this idea that people think that, well, I shouldn't say people, but Christians believe that the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach, which is, they call the new covenant, which is leg 1. They believe that that was replaced, or that it replaced the old covenant. Depending on the interpretation of Hebrews chapter 8, verse 7 and 13, the impact on Christian theology would be significant, requiring readjustment to the relevance of the law in believers' lives today, y'all. And so that's what's at stake. And so we knocked down and broke that leg yesterday. We broke it off, showing that the old covenant was not replaced. And we're going to go further into that today. All right. And then, in addition, if Matthew5 and 18 is an idiom, which is leg 2, and if you read Matthew5 and 18, it says, let me go here. It says, until heaven and earth passes away, not one jot or one tittle will pass from the law. And so I want to go right there so you can see the quote for yourself. And the question again, is Matthew5 and 18 literal, or is it an idiom? Yeshua says, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. All right. And so Christians interpret this all be fulfilled is, again, the death, burial, and resurrection. And so they say, well, since the death, burial, and resurrection already happened, then he fulfilled the law. But what they're leaving out is till heaven and earth pass. One jot or one tittle will no wise pass from the law. So they're leaving out this till heaven and earth pass. And they're just looking and focusing on till all be fulfilled. All right. And so actually last night we knocked that leg out. Okay. So actually we knocked out this leg, showing and proving that this is indeed an idiom. It is indeed an idiom. Okay. And so today, and okay, I need to change this because this is actually leg 1. Right. And I know it's backwards, but hey, it's okay. It's okay. And that's leg 2, which we're going to deal with today. Okay. So what I can do is this. See, this is how we do this. Okay, so we're going to do that. Okay, it's called, correcting on the fly. Got to be able to do that every now and then. Okay. All right. And then we're going to go here. There we go. There we go. And then we'll just move that down. See how that works? And we fixed it just like that. Okay? Just like that. All right. And so in addition, Christians believe that because of the death, burial, and resurrection, Yeshua HaMashiach, the new covenant, which is leg 2, which we're going to deal with today, replaced the old covenant. Depending on the interpretation of Hebrews 8, verse 7 and 13, the impact on Christian theology would significantly require readjustment to the relevance of the law in believers' lives today. In other words, should we still practice the law today? Now, I'm going to show you where the law is considered to be the 10 commandments. And if we are not to practice the 10 commandments today, come on and go with me here, then is it okay to murder? You got to consider that. See, this is the significant readjustment that's going to have to be made, because the end result of believing that the old covenant has been replaced means that the old covenant, because if you look at Hebrews 7 and 13, as a matter of fact, let's go there. If you look at Hebrews 7 and 13, or 8 and 7, sorry, Hebrews 8, 7 and 13, okay? For if the first covenant had been faultless, then no place had been sought for a second. So right there off the bat, it tells you, and this is what Christians and Christianity pulls from this, I should say modern day Christianity. That wasn't so with the church fathers. We're going to get to that. So if the first covenant had been faultless, so they're saying, oh, there was something wrong with the 10 commandments. There's something wrong with them. And as a result, look at verse 13. In that he said a new covenant. So since something was wrong with the first covenant, the 10 commandments, Exodus chapter 20, a new covenant he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. So the old covenant is ready to vanish away, to be removed, and the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua did just that, cause it to vanish away. Cause what to vanish away? The 10 commandments. All right. I'm going to show you later that the law is considered to be the 10 commandments. All right. And so if the 10 commandments have been vanished away, we no longer have to honor our mother and father. We can serve other gods. We can do all kinds of stuff, especially ignore the Sabbath, the 4th commandment. And so, and all we have to do is just say, hey, Abba Yah, I know I'm not perfect. Please forgive me. That's what his death, burial, and resurrection was for, to give us grace. And as a matter of fact, grace and mercy, we're no longer under the law, but we're under grace. Another misinterpretation. All right, so we're going to jump on all of these, and we're going to break that second leg today. Are you ready, guys? Y'all ready? Let's get this in this morning. Those of you who are in the building, blessings and welcome. Thank you for being here today. We look forward. Go ahead and shout out. I can't really tell who's here, who's not here. Go ahead and shout out who you are. Just say shalom. Type shalom in the chat. And I see somebody left. Uh-oh. They don't want to. Okay, it's okay. You don't have to leave. Come on back. You don't have to shout yourself out. It's all good. It is all good. All right. So last night, this is where we left off. We left off right here. And so let's take a look at Hebrews chapter 8 and verse 7. And again, I pray and hope that you have notes ready. Notes ready. We just looked at this. So we're just going to go back to it. But I want to go a little deeper. I want to go a little deeper into what does it mean to be faultless? If the first covenant had been faultless, all right? And so I want to go into what does it mean to be faultless? Because it seems like, guys, and this is just to me, it seems like Christianity only focuses on verses 7 and 13. Like that's what sticks out from Hebrews chapter 8 is verse 7 and 13. Okay. And so if you only look at verse 7 and 13, then yes, you're going to come to the conclusion that the law has vanished away. It doesn't exist in our lives today, so we no longer have to follow it. And that is the conclusion, the blind conclusion that you will come to. But if you consider verses 8 and 10, then hopefully the Ruach Kodesh will open your eyes and you'll see that that is just simply not true. All right, so let's look at verse 8 and 10. So verse 7 says, for if the first covenant had been faultless. So the question we have to ask is, what was faultless? Was it the covenant? Well, that's what verse 7 says, right? Until we read verse 8. Finding fault with them. See, that's the key now. Finding fault with them. He saith, behold, the day is coming. He's quoting Jeremiah 31 and 31. The days are coming, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant. I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. All right. So listen, guys, if the first covenant, which were the laws, the 10 commandments, which I'm going to show you, had no fault, something was wrong with the commandments. That's a conclusion that many who believe in Christianity, many who practice Christianity believe. There was something wrong with the commandments. That's why he sent the second covenant. But verse 8 challenges that idea and says, wait a minute, there was nothing wrong with the words written with the finger of God. Come on and go with me. So now the burden of proof is to say, oh, is there something intrinsically wrong with what God wrote? That's a problem. That's a question you're going to have to answer to. No, verse 8 says there was a fault with them. It wasn't with the words written, but it was with the people reading the words. It was with the people. The fault was with them. Watch what verse 10 says. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, thus saith the Lord, I will put my laws into their minds, write them into their hearts, and I will be their God, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. So notice here, verse 8 and 10 is giving us a completely different narrative. The fault wasn't with the words written or the law, but the fault was with the people. It was with them. Okay. And so if we were to summarize that, let's summarize that. Let's summarize Hebrews chapter 8, verse 7 through 8, and verse 10 and 13. Okay. And so we want to compare these and and really look at what's happening here. So I want to change this. I'm always changing, right, during my lesson because I'm noticing different things. I have, it's going to be a quick change. All right. So the stone was verse 7:13. The heart, verse 8 and 10. There we go. That was a quick change. So if we compare verses 7 and 13 to verses 8 and 10, what do we see? We see a difference in location, y'all. A difference in location. There's nothing wrong with the words. It's just where the words were located. Verses 7 and 13 says the words were located externally on stone. But verses 8 and 10 says God changed the location, not the covenant. The word, there was nothing wrong with the words. They were written with the finger of Yah. But what was the problem was that where they were written. All right. 7 and 13 says they were written on stone. 8 and 10 says they're going to be written in the heart, in the mind, internal versus external. All right. And so we have to consider that. Now, to look at this difference, Paul explains this difference beautifully. This is why people don't understand Paul. One of the reasons why they don't understand Paul. So let's go to 2 Corinthians. So 2 Corinthians 3, verses 3 through 18 is going to explain this difference right here. Okay. 2 Corinthians 3 through 18 is going to explain the difference we see right here. Okay. So let's go to 2 Corinthians. Chapter 3. And we're going to go to verse 3. And again, I recommend you read the entire chapter. You know what? Why not? Let's start at verse 1. Okay. So you see, Paul is also referencing Jeremiah 31 and 31 here. Okay. He's a minister of a new covenant. So do we begin again to commend ourselves, or need we, as some others, epistles of commendation to you, or letters of commendation from you? You are our epistle, written in our heart, known and read of all men. Verse 3. For as much as you are manifestly declared to be the epistle of Christ, ministered by us, written, watch this, he's referring to the stone, written not with ink on stone, but with the Spirit of the living God, not in tables of stone, he says, but in fleshly tables of the heart. So Paul is saying the new covenant is the difference is not that the law was wrong or the fault was in the law. He says the fault was in the location of where the law was written. He says not in tables of stone, but in fleshly tables of the heart. Okay. And such trust have we through Christ to Godward. Not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything as of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God. Verse 6, who also hath made us able ministers of the new covenant or New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. Now, people interpret verse 6 to say, see, it's not the letter of the law, the actual words written, but it's the Spirit. But what they're failing to understand is what he means by the letter killeth. He's saying the letters that are written on stone. Keep it in the context. All right. Keep it in the context. Verse, what was that? Verse 3. Okay, not written in ink, but with the Spirit. Not tables of stone, but fleshly heart. So you have to look at verse 3 to help you with verse 6. But if the ministration of death, written and engraven in stone, notice he keeps referring to the fact that it wasn't what was written that is the ministration of death, but it was where it was written that was the ministration of death. It was external. It was not internal. It was not real and personal for the Israelites. All right. But he says this, but if the ministration of death was written and engraven in stone, was glorious, so that the children of Israel could not steadfastly behold the face of Moses for the glory of his countenance. So he's saying, even if it was written on stone, it was still glorious enough. The words were glorious enough so that Moses glowed like a shining light. So he says that was the ministration of death. That was on stone. It still caused Moses to beam like a shining bright light. Okay? Which glory was to be done away. How shall not the ministration of the Spirit be rather glorious or more glorious? Again, not that the words are going to pass away or be deleted, but the stone is going to be taken away, and that it is going to be placed within us by his Spirit, by the Ruach Kodesh. How much more glorious will the words be that are in us now, in our hearts and our minds? Verse 9, for if the ministration of condemnation be glory, much more doth the ministration of righteousness exceed in glory. In other words, for if the commandments written in stone were glorious, how much more will the commandments be written in your heart be even more glorious, will exceed in glory? For even that which is made glorious had no glory in this respect, by reason of the glory that excelleth. For if that which is done away was glorious, much more that which remaineth is glorious. So what was done away with? Based on what we've been learning in the context, the stone. That's what was done away, not what was written in the stone, but the stones were done away with. And what remaineth is the words that are going to be placed in our hearts and minds. That's the glory that Paul is talking about. Are y'all with me? Any comments or questions on that so far? Any comments or questions on that so far? All right, let's keep going. Verse 12. Seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech, and not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Israel could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. Again, it wasn't the words that were abolished, it was the stone that was abolished. Are y'all with me? But their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the veil untaken away in the reading of the old covenant. Because he's saying that it's today, it was written still on parchment paper, and it was not written in their hearts. Come on and go with me, y'all. The veil untaken away in the reading of the old covenant, which veil is done away in Christ. You see that, the Messiah, the Mashiach. So watch this. When you're in Christ, when you're in the Mashiach, now you have the ability to have the words written in your heart, the law written in your heart. But even unto this day, when Moses is read, the veil is upon their heart. You see that? Nevertheless, when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. Now the Lord is that Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So watch this. You know, we always use that this particular verse, but when we use it in the context now, you know what it's saying? It's saying that there's liberty, there's freedom in the law. My goodness. Come on, y'all. You mean after all this context, y'all don't see that? That's why Paul is saying this now. The Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. But watch this, verse 18. But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. Whole new different understanding of 2 Corinthians 3. Okay? Where you thought he was referring to the words written on stone, it was referring to the stone that had the words written on it. That's what's going to be taken away. That's what's going to be abolished, is the stone. All right? All right? So, as Paul in this verse, or chapter, I should say, chapter 3, is referring back to Jeremiah 31 and 33, so is the writer of Hebrews. All right, verses 8 and 10. They're quoting Jeremiah 31 and 33. Okay, so crucial context for understanding the relationship between the old and new covenants. Okay, so there's some crucial context that we need to look at. All right, and so let's go to and do some word study. I love word study when it's supported by the rest of the scriptures. All right. So let's look at this word fault in verse 8. For finding fault with them. All right. So this Greek word, memphomenos, it means simply to blame. So where was the blame in verse 8? Was it with the law or is it with them? Obviously, we see that as with them. It is not with the law. So Yah blames the people and not the law. That's the Greek, memphomenos. Okay. But the Hebrew guys, this word equivalent, memphomenos, the equivalent word in the Septuagint, is found in Job 33 and 10. Okay. Tenuah in the Hebrew. Tenuah carries with it the idea of the fault was with the people, meaning that the people turned their hearts away. Okay. They withdrew their hearts from the law. In other words, they were in opposition to the law. And you know what? Let's not be brand new. Let's not act brand new. We don't like nobody telling us what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. That's just plain and simple. We don't like it. And we even do that today. We turn away from people who attempt to control our behavior or thinking. And that's exactly what the law does. It controls your thinking and your behavior. And we don't like that. Let's just keep it real, 100. And see, we're running around here talking about, well, I can't do it. And no, you don't want to do it. Bottom line. And here's the bottom line. You don't have to wrestle with people and go around the world, around the block and explaining why they don't want to do it. Listen, while they come up with excuses, listen, check this for the record. Memphomenos and Tenuah says that the fault is with us because we are to blame. Why? Because we turn away, we withdraw, and we're in opposition to any instructions that attempt to control our thinking and our actions. We don't like it. And so the people of Israel, by rejecting the law, the people became the enemy, not the law. The people became God's enemy. And let me say this. And I know maybe some of our Christians are going to say, see, he's going to the extreme. No, this is just what the text is saying. Actually, you know what? Let's go to Job. Let's let Job tell you. Because they're going to say, see, you're trying to use control tactics. No, what's happening to you is that you are in a mode of rejection. And you want to withdraw. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to give you a little context. So let's go to verse 6. Behold, look, I am according to thy wish in God's stead. I also am formed out of the clay. Behold, my terror shall not make thee afraid, neither shall my hand be heavy upon thee. Surely you have spoken in mine hearing, and I have heard the voice of thy words, saying, I am clean without transgression. I am innocent, neither is there iniquity in me. Behold, he findeth occasion against me. He counteth me for his enemy. So he says, even though, watch this, even though Job can say all these things, even though Job can say all these things about himself, I am clean without transgression. I am innocent, neither is there iniquity in me. Verse 10 says, behold, he findeth occasion against me. He counteth me for his enemy. So listen, it doesn't matter how righteous you think you are. Well, I don't smoke. Well, at least they don't smoke. At least they don't do this. At least I don't do that. And you think that makes you or someone righteous. You're comparing the wrong people. So while you're comparing someone to another person, what you should be doing is comparing them to Yeshua HaMashiach. Feel me? And this is why Abba Yah said in verse 10, behold, I findeth occasion against you. Even though you think you're good, you're really not. Even though we think we're walking righteous, we really don't. He says, I counted you to be an enemy of God. Behold, he findeth occasion against me. He counted me for his enemy. So watch this. When we reject the instructions, when we reject the law, by rejecting the law, the people became the enemy, not the law. And that's typically what we do as well. I mean, if you go back to Adam, remember when they got busted in the garden? The snake, Eve blamed Adam, or Eve blamed the snake, and then Adam blamed Eve. Okay, blame shifting. What Christianity has done is that they have blame shifted the fault to be with the law instead of themselves. And that's what's happening today. And that lens clogs and fogs up their ability to see that the enemy is not the law written with the finger of Yah. That's not the enemy. The enemy is us when we reject the instructions of Yah. Are y'all with me? All right, let's continue. Now, Romans 7, 12 and 13 gives us more evidence that the law is not the enemy. So let's go check it out. Let's check it out. See, all of these passages that we were misunderstanding before, they're being cleared up. They're being cleared up now. Romans 7, 12 and 13. Now, again, you can read this whole chapter, and you'll see in verse 12, he says, wherefore, or therefore, or in conclusion, the law is holy. Now, you got to understand, we're going to get into what holy is. You can see it up on the screen. Hold on. You can see it up on the screen there. All right. He says, therefore, I'm concluding, Paul is saying, the law is holy and the commandment is holy and just and good. So Paul says the law and the commandments, they're holy, they're just, and they're good. Now, how would Paul, after the resurrection, after the death, burial, and resurrection, after Matthew 5 and 18, why is Paul still talking about the law? What is he? I mean, if it's vanished away, if it's disappeared, if it ceased to exist, why is Paul still talking about this law? Can I tell you why? Because now the law is written in Paul's heart. The promise and the fulfillment of Jeremiah 31 and 31, or 31 and 33. All right. Verse 13, was then that which is good made death unto me? Paul says, wait a minute, what are you thinking? No. How could the law, being good, be death to me? He says, God forbid. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. Right? And so that sheds light. So we have to look at Romans 7, verse 12 and 13 in light of Romans 2 and 29 of the law being a schoolmaster and a teacher and a tutor. Oh, that's not in my lesson, but that just came to me. All right. So that may be a side study for you, is with Romans, everything we've been saying really, but specifically, you want to look at Second Corinthians chapter 3, Romans 7, 12 and 13, and then Romans 2 and 29. You want to look at those. You need me to put them in the chat? What do you need me to do? I got you. Well, what you need me to do? You need me to put them in the chat? All right. So we got 2 Corinthians chapter 3, that whole chapter. We got Romans 7, 12 through 13. And then we got Romans 2, 29. Okay. And so we need to revisit these passages in light of the law being holy, just, and good, and in light of the fault being with the people and not the law. Because why? It was written in stone and not in their hearts. Are y'all with me? All right. So when Paul says the law is holy, it's the word hagios in the Greek, kodesh in the Hebrew. It means it is morally blameless. You cannot find fault in it, which confirms Hebrews chapter 8, verse 8. It's confirming it right there. You know what that also means? That is holy and that is morally blameless. It means that when it comes to morale, when it comes to morality, it's blameless. That means there's no fault in it. That means there's nothing wrong with it. That means that it was good for Adam, and it will be good until the last person lives on earth. Come on and go with me here. In other words, that means it was right back then, is right today, and it will be right long after we have gone from this place. It's good and it's right for all people. It's morally blameless. That means you cannot find anything wrong with saying that you shouldn't have another God besides the Most High. It's nothing, you can't find any. It's blameless. It's blameless when it comes to Shabbat, the fourth commandment. Come on and go with me here. Now, does that mean that your salvation is based on following the Torah? Absolutely no. No, we're not teaching that at all. Don't read that into this lesson. And many people want to go there and have to go there to justify not following the law. That's the first thing they bring up. Well, salvation, your salvation is not dependent on following the law. No, that's the straw man that you use because you reject the law. All right. So in other words, a straw man, guys, is they will create a completely different argument than the one you're arguing, which is that the law is good. The completely different argument is that, the law doesn't determine salvation. Well, we didn't make that argument. And we don't, by the way, we don't even believe that. And why don't we believe that? Because scripture doesn't teach that. You're justified by faith alone, not the works of the law. We believe the scriptures, y'all. Yes, let me say it clearly. We Hebrew Israelites, and there are a lot of us who actually believe and teach what thus saith the Lord, which is what I'm doing today by breaking the two legs off of this notion that the law is not holy, that is not just, and that it is not good, and that it's not worthy for us to practice today. Breaking that leg right off. So Paul says that it's blameless. It's morally blameless. Now watch this. It's set apart. That's what holy means. It is set apart. All right. It is in a category all by itself. And it's sacred. It's not mundane. It's not profane, but it is sacred. Problem is, people want to mix the sacred and the profane together. Come on and go with me. Look at our Christian churches today. I know y'all discuss it with what's going on in those Christian churches, playing Megan Thee Stallion just to get people to come to your church. You can't mix the sacred and profane together. Oh no. You know that I'm going to write this down. Mixing of the sacred and profane. That is going to be a series. Look at this. Mixing. I'm sorry. These ideas, if you don't write them down, they'll be gone. Mixing the sacred and profane. Oh, yes. All right. Now, it says the law is just. Dikaya. Okay? Dikaya. That means the law is just. That means that it is free from favoritism or bias or deception. The law is absent of favoritism. It doesn't favor anyone. It will, listen, the law is going to do what it does no matter how old you are, no matter your heritage, your ethnic background, no matter who you are, it applies equally. As a matter of fact, let me say this. I believe that is why the United States has the 14th Amendment. Equal protection under the law. Although their practice has showed favoritism. Come on and go with me here. Oh, I can go there if you want. I can make this a lesson. Look, we just celebrated Juneteenth. Oh, I can go there. I heard somebody say that Juneteenth is the real Freedom Day, not 4th of July. What do y'all think about that? What do y'all think about that? What are your thoughts on that? That Juneteenth is really the day of freedom, not July 4th. Yeah. Interesting. On July 4th, 1776. Slavery didn't end until 1865, almost 100 years after. I can go there if you want. I mean, I have the capabilities of going just right there. But just means free from favoritism, bias, or deception. But then he says the law is good. That means the Constitution, its nature, the intrinsic nature of the law has to be internally good. That means agathos. Now, there's two Greek words that communicates intrinsic goodness and extrinsic goodness. Agathos is the intrinsic goodness. Agathos, yes, agathos, yes. And the other one is oh man, it slipped my mind. Agathos, and I can't remember the one that means external goodness. Okay. But agathos means intrinsic goodness. That means the very nature of the law. Why is the very nature of the law good? Because of who wrote it. Come on and go with me, y'all. God is good. And as a result, whatever he does is good, including the writing of the law. It is intrinsically good. Its constitution, its nature. Okay. And so with all of that, you have to come to the conclusion that the new covenant does not destroy, replace, or gets rid of the old covenant. It continues the covenant in a different format. The new covenant is made with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah, suggesting continuity, rather than a complete break from the old covenant. No. What is broken is the stone that it was written on. Remember Moses in I think it's Exodus 32, when the children of Israel, Moses went up to get the 10 commandments, the law, and the children of Israel convinced Aaron to make the calf, the golden calf. What did Moses do with the stones? Did he break the law or did he break the stones? Okay. He broke the stones. Did that destroy the law? No. The law was still good and intrinsic, but what the problem was, it was where it was written, because it wasn't written in the hearts of the people. So I'm calling on Christians today, this Hebrew Israelite, I'm calling on Christians today to consider relooking, revising, and revisiting your understanding of the new covenant, of the word new in covenant, in light of Hebrews chapter 8, verse 8, Jesus' words in Matthew 5 and 18 being an idiom. As a matter of fact, I gave you evidence yesterday, but I want you to see this book that I have here. Okay. It is called Understanding the Difficult Words of Yeshua, New Insight for a Hebraic Perspective by David Biven and Roy Blizzard. All right. On page 54, it lists Matthew 5, 17 through 20. Okay. And then it tells us to go to page 109. All right. So let me just briefly read a couple things out of here. All right. So let me get to okay, here we go. Verses 17 through 18. Matthew 5, verse 17 to 18. He says here, and I quote, in Matthew 5 and 17, Jesus claims he has no intention of abolishing or suspending the law. For most Christians, this comes as a shock. After all, did not the Apostle Paul say Christ is the end of the law. Now you can look up that word end, which means goal. Okay. That's in Romans 10:4. Jesus' statement seems such a contradiction that many Christian commentators have tried to explain it away by suggesting that the words do not really mean what they seem to mean. Their attempts are futile. The meaning of Jesus' words is clear. As long as the world lasts, he goes on to say in verse 18, the law will last. Here, Jesus is in complete agreement with the prophets and the sages of old. Everything has an end, okay, or a limit. Heaven and earth has an end, except one thing which has no end. And what is that? The law. Now, we can go to some of our. Now, let me take you here real quick. Let me take you here. Okay, I want to take you here really quick. Okay, again, this is our oral tradition. I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to go to, let's see, the Mishnah. I'm going to go to, hold on. Let me see, I got to make sure I'm going to the right. Hold up. No, Midrash. I believe it's Midrash. All right. Bereshit Rabbah. I believe this is the one. 10. Okay, the heavens and earth and their entire host were completed. It is written, I see an end to all great things, but your commandments are exceedingly broad. So you can go to Psalm 119:96. Everything has boundaries. The heavens and earth have boundaries, with the exception of one matter that does not have boundaries, which is that. That is the Torah. As it is stated, its measure, is longer than the earth and broader than the sea. Job 11:9. Another interpretation, I see an end to all great things. That is the works of the creation of the heavens and the earth. As it is stated, the heavens and earth were completed. Okay, so that's saying that watch this, guys. You got to understand the language here. It's not saying that they're going to be done away with. When it says it's completed, it's saying it has limits, that the heavens and earth has limits because it was completed. In comparison to the law, which is no limits. Come on and go with me here. It applies anywhere, everywhere, at any time. Come on and go with me. Rabbi Hama began, remove the dross from silver vessel will emerge for the smith. Rabbi Eleazar said in the name of Rabbi Yaakov is analogous to that. Okay, that's not related to what we're talking about here. But let me go to Psalm 119:96 and see what that says. I hope you guys are getting something out of this morning, because I really am. Psalm 119:96. I have seen an end of all perfection, but thy commandments is exceeding broad. Okay. So let's just look at this word end, because it could mean limit. So kes in the Hebrew. Okay, so it can mean end at the end of time or end of space. All right. Um, yeah, very interesting. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Okay. It's interesting in Ecclesiastes 12 and 12, because it goes right into verse 13. Okay, so let's go there. And further, by these, my son, be admonished of making many books. There is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Let us consider the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Lord and keep the commandments. This is the whole duty. It's the whole duty of who? Of men? Of males? No. It is the whole duty of Ha-Adam, humanity. It is the whole duty of mankind, human beings. Okay? Not just the first Adam, not just Israelites, Gentiles as well. Mankind, human beings. It's the whole duty. The whole duty of every male and female is to keep the commandments. Come on, go with me. I'm just trying to show y'all something. So, I'm calling you, Christians, my brothers, my sisters, revisit your understanding of New Covenant, which the scriptures teach is moving from stone to the heart and the mind. That's why it's new. It's because what's being written is changing locations. Okay. So, a revised understanding of new in light of Hebrews 8 and 8, and I should say 10 also. 8 and 8, and Jesus' words in Matthew 5 and 18, new does not mean replacement, but rather renewal or refreshed. A renewed and a refreshed implementation of the law. That's the new covenant. Come on and go with me, guys. The new covenant is a renewal and a refreshed implementation. It's not implemented on stone, but it's implemented in the heart and the mind. Also, you're going to have to reanalyze Hebrews 8, 7, and 13. And consider this question. Is the first covenant really obsolete? Are the laws, the 10 commandments, really obsolete? We just talked about this. Covenant location, not content of the law. It's changed. Covenant location is changed. Where the laws are going to be written, not the content of what is written. Why? Because the fault was with the people's inability to keep the covenant, not with the covenant's content. Now, we're going to look at Exodus' stones versus Jeremiah's hardened mind. Now, this is a lot, y'all, but I want to take my time and go through this. Y'all with me? Let's go. So, hardening stone versus heart and mind. So let's go to Exodus 24. Verse 18. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gat him. I like that. Up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. Okay. So we can see he was up there 40 days and 40 nights. All right. Go to Exodus 32 and 15. And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the two tables of the testimonies were in his hands, and the tables were written on both sides. On both sides, on the one side and on the other were they written. Verse 16. And the tables were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tables. So the writing, y'all, was not only the work of God. You cannot get rid of the work of God. You can't just arbitrarily start dissing and taking away the work and the writing of God. You can't add to it, and you cannot take away. Come on and go with me. Let's drop down to verse 19. And it came to pass, as soon as he came nigh unto the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. And Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tables out of his hands and break them beneath the mount where the golden calf was. So broken stones does not mean broken law. Verse 20. And he took the calf with which they had made, and he burned it in fire, and ground it in powder, and watch this, and strawed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink it. You see that? Exodus 34. And verses 1 through 4. And the Lord said unto Moses, hew thee 2 tables of stone, like unto the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tablets, which thou breakest. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning unto the Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me in the top of the mount. And no man shall come upon thee, or no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks nor the herds feed before that mount. Verse 4. And he hewed 2 tables of stone, like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning and went up into Mount Sinai, as the Lord commanded him. And he took in his hands the 2 tables of stone. Again, the stone is a common theme here. Drop down to verse 28. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, and he did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant. Look at this. The words of the covenant. Remember, I told you I was going to come back to this. The words of the covenant, which are what? The 10 Commandments. You see that? So going back to my original argument I made, if the 10 Commandments, which are the words of the covenant, the first covenant or the old covenant, are going to vanish, disappear, and be taken away, are you inadvertently also saying that the 10 Commandments no longer exist? That's the dilemma you're in. That is the dilemma that Christians find themselves in. And they begin saying things like, well, we're to obey them spiritually now. You cannot get around this. If you take away the first covenant, which you believe is done away with, according to Hebrews chapter 8, verse 7 and 13, then inadvertently, I don't believe it's intentional, then you're taking away the 10 Commandments, because the 10 Commandments are the words of the old covenant. This is why you believe you don't have to. Watch this. I'm not going to say worship on Shabbat. That's a mistake that a lot of Christians make too. We're never called to worship on Shabbat. We're called to remember and keep Shabbat. You can worship anytime, any day you want, but you can only keep Shabbat one day a week. 6 days you shall work, and on the 7th day it is Shabbat unto the Abba. So now, are you willing to accept and deal with the consequences of your belief that the first covenant is done away with? Ergo, the 10 Commandments are done away with. So I don't have to honor my mother and father. I don't have to serve one God. I could kill who I want to kill. Hey, why not just make me an atheist? No commandments, no consequences. You can't judge me by something that doesn't exist. Paul said he didn't even know he was sinning until he saw it in the Torah. Where did he say that at? For some reason, that just popped in my head. He said, I did not know sin except through the law. Yeah, Paul said that. Romans, we were just there. Look at this. Romans 7. We were just there. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? He said, don't be silly. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. He said, look, if it wasn't written in the law, so Paul said, I wouldn't have even known I was doing anything wrong. This is why atheists want to remove the moral standard, the objective moral standard of the commandments. Is because they are objectively right. Look what he says in verse 8. For without the law, sin is dead. You see that? If there's no law, there's no sin. Because what is sin, y'all? What's the definition of sin? 1 John 3:4. 1 John chapter 3. Isn't this good? Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law. Paul says if there was no law, there would be sin. He said sin is dead because sin is the transgression of the law. So if I remove the law, there's no more sin. This is Bible. So we gotta revisit. We gotta revisit. Now watch this. That was the hardened stone. Jeremiah is going to talk about the heart and mind. Jeremiah 31. And let's go to 33. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts, not on stone. See, this is the new covenant. He's going to put it in the inward parts, not on stone. It's not to remove the law, but it's to put the law in the right place. What do they say is the key to real estate? Location, location, location. Well, the key to the law is location, location, location. In the heart, not on stone. He's going to write, watch this, and write it in their hearts. The key to fulfilling and practicing the law is internalizing it by allowing the Ruach to write it in our hearts. Are y'all with me? Questions, comments, concerns? No question. I must be clear today. This must be so super clear. That's good. That's a good thing. Now, I'm almost done. Give me about 15 more minutes. I know it's an hour and a half. It's all good, though. This is worth it, right? Every minute. What is the Christian scholarly perspective? I gave you some yesterday, but I'm going to give you some more. Okay? Because we're chopping off this second leg. All right? Which is the new covenant removes the old covenant. Okay? We're chopping that leg right off. So your Christian scholars, Michael Horton says, in Introducing Covenant Theology, he argues that the new covenant fulfills rather than abolishes the previous covenants. It's not abolishing the law. It's fulfilling it. That means you can't get rid of the law. The death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach does not get rid of the law and the need to practice it. Scott Hahn, in his book, Kinship by Covenant, suggests that the new covenant is a renewal and elevation of the Mosaic covenant. Ergo, Exodus 34:28, the Ten Commandments, not its abolition or abolition or getting rid of it. You can't get rid of the commandments. I mean, it's not your place to even do it. You don't even have the authority. It was written with the finger of Yah. Now let's get down to the nitty gritty. Well, what are your church fathers? I want y'all to pay attention to this clearly, guys. If you wanted to, I really suggest you take notes on this, because the church fathers are very important to Christianity and their practice and belief in certain doctrines. So the question is now, for Christians today, where do you get your belief that the law is no longer relevant to believers today? That it shouldn't be practiced and that it shouldn't be obeyed? Where is your proof? Where's your evidence? Because the church fathers don't agree with you. Well, maybe one does. Let's look at Justin Martyr. He wrote, or he lived from 100 to 165. He wrote in his dialogue with Trypho. Now you got to understand who Trypho was. Trypho was a Jew who did not believe in Yeshua HaMashiach. So Justin Martyr is responding to a Jew whose mindset, number one, does not accept Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, and any of the words of the Messiah. And Trypho believes that in order to be saved, you have to keep the law. Okay? So you can look at Dialogue with Trypho, chapter 11. Or actually the introduction, chapter 1. Read chapter 1, which is the intro, which introduces who Trypho is, his beliefs, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? And how Trypho and Justin Martyr met. But anyway, remember that. Keep that in mind when you're reading Justin Martyr. His argument or the dialogue is with Trypho, who is a Jew that does not believe in Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay? So this is what he says about the and let me add, Trypho also believes that in order to be saved, you have to keep the law. We don't believe that. So watch this. This is what Justin Martyr says about the law. The law promulgated on Horeb is now old and belongs to yourselves alone, meaning it belongs to just Jews alone. But this is for all universally. An external and final law, namely Christ, has been given to us. So what Justin Martyr is saying is that we don't need to keep the law to be saved. The only person we need to be saved is Christ. So Justin Martyr is not even making an argument against removing the law. Justin Martyr is making an argument against removing the law if you're going to use it to believe that it can save you. Come on and go with me here. That is an accurate reading of Justin Martyr. So Justin Martyr is not even saying that the law is not good. Justin Martyr is saying that it's not sufficient for salvation, which we all agree with. Yeah, even Hebrew Israelites believe that. Come on and go with me. So Christians, just, many of your arguments against Hebrew Israelites, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board, Bubba. You're going to have to go back to the drawing board and deal with this and come with some real evidence and some consistency in your belief. I want to encourage you. All right. So Justin Martyr, 100. Now let's go to Polycarp, who was before Justin Martyr. Now remember, Polycarp was discipled by the Apostle John. Look at his dates. He lived from 69 to 155 AD. Polycarp was a disciple of the Apostle John. Now let's see what Polycarp was passed on. In other words, what was passed on to Polycarp by the Apostle John? Oh, we're going to go somewhere today. We're going to knock this leg off today. Watch this. Polycarp, discipled by Apostle John. While Polycarp doesn't directly comment on Matthew 5 and 18 or Hebrews8, he generally approached the law. His general approach to the law is relevant here. In his epistle to the Philippians, he emphasizes the importance of righteousness and obedience to God's commands, suggesting a continuity of moral standard found in the law. So, very interesting. Now, my only slip up here is I didn't provide you the reference. You want to tag me on that? Go ahead. Yeah, okay, okay, I'll give you that one. I didn't provide the reference. But I guarantee I will provide the reference, and I will put it on my Facebook page. Okay. But notice this. Polycarp, who was discipled by John, he doesn't even comment on Matthew 5 and 18 or Hebrews chapter 8. Nowhere in Polycarp's dialogue or Polycarp's writings does he even respond or address Matthew 5 and 18, Hebrews 8. However, in his epistle to the Philippians, which I will put up, he does emphasize the importance of righteousness and obedience to God's commands. Hold on. See, y'all messing with me. So let me share this with you. See how I work? Epistle of Polycarp to the Philippians. We got chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, 5. Knowing then that God is not mocked, he quotes Galatians 6 and 7. We ought to walk worthy of what? His commandment. I just didn't put the reference. There it is, though. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's Polycarp. Now, why would Polycarp say that? Because he emphasizes the importance of righteousness and obedience to God's commands, agreeing with the teachings of Apostle John and Yeshua, that there's a continuity in covenants, old and new covenant, instead of being written on stone, being written in the hearts. Are y'all with me? There's a reference. Epistle to the Philippians 5. Okay. So let me fix this. There we go. That's it. Okay. So remember, Apostle John was discipled by Yeshua, who taught him to have an honor and respect, and most importantly, obedience to the law, not for salvation, but for holiness. Guess what Apostle John turned around and taught Polycarp? The same thing. So Christians, where are you getting your understanding that the new covenant replaces the old? Polycarp, who was a disciple of Apostle John, who was a disciple of Yeshua, didn't teach that. Let's keep going. Polycarp also writes, but he who raised him from the dead will raise up us also, if we do his will and walk in his commandments. Yeah, that's in chapter 2. So hold on. There we go. I'm going to show you. Oh, I'm on top of it. I just forgot that one. Can y'all see this? I know it's kind of small, but let me make it larger. It's right here. But he who raised him up from the dead will raise us also if we do his will and walk in his commandments and love what he loved, keeping ourselves from all unrighteousness. It's right there. Oh, I got references for you. Yeah. This implies a continued validity of God's laws, aligning with Yeshua's words about the law's permanence. Matthew 5 and 18. Irenaeus, who was a disciple. Look at the dates. So we got Polycarp, 69 to 155. Then we have Irenaeus, who was a disciple of Polycarp. In Against Heresies, Irenaeus discusses the relationship between the old and new covenants. He says, on the permanence of the law, relevant to Matthew 5 and 18, the Lord did not abrogate the natural precepts of the law by which man is justified, but he extended and fulfilled them. Now, I don't agree with Irenaeus on this because he says that the natural precepts of the law by which man is justified. We are not justified by the law. See, this is where you have to be able to read the church fathers in context of the scriptures. So why is your church father of Christianity, but now you have to say this is blasphemy. This is false teaching. That Irenaeus, when it comes to the covenants, he says the Lord did not abrogate the natural precepts of the law by which man is justified. That is not true. Here we have a scripture. Let me give you a scripture, guys, because Irenaeus on this particular issue is incorrect. And he did not, I don't know where he got that from, but he did not get that from Polycarp or John. Okay. Galatians 2 and 16. Ultimately disagrees with Irenaeus on this issue. Galatians. I have to go here, guys. Galatians 2 and 16. Knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law. On the other hand, Irenaeus, Christianity's church father, on this issue, says of the law, which man is justified by. That's a false teaching by Irenaeus. And not just this is a huge one. Where did Irenaeus get this from? He didn't get it from John. He didn't get it from Yeshua. Where did he get it from? Now, this calls me to question Irenaeus going forward. Okay. Are y'all with me? Questions? Let's keep going. Chrysanthemum, 347 to 407. So all the way up until 407 AD, in his homilies on Matthew, Chrysostom writes, for neither did he come to destroy these things, but to fulfill them. Speaking of the law, he said not, I do not destroy the law, but I do not destroy it, so much as one jot or tittle of it. Even Chrysanthemum, all the way up to 407 AD, believes in the permanence and the continuity of the law, aligning with Yeshua's use of the idiom in Matthew 5 and 18. Christians, where are you getting that the new covenant is going to replace the old covenant? It's the location. Let's continue. Augustine, all the way up to 430. In the Sermon on the Mount, Augustine states, his commentary on the Sermon on the Mount, Augustine says, the law, therefore, is not destroyed, but fulfilled by him, or Yeshua, who acts from love rather than fear. Augustine sees the law as enduring, but fulfilled through love, suggesting a transformation in how it is observed. Not that it's not observed, but it's a transformation in how it's observed. Hilary of Poitiers. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Poitiers. All the way up to 367. In his commentary on Matthew, Hilary writes, the law is not destroyed, but by Christ, but fulfilled, expanded, and extended. Hilary's view supports continuity and transformation of the law as it relates to Matthew 5 and 18. All these church fathers, Cyril of Alexander, in his commentary, Cyril, he states, the first covenant was not faultless. Hold on, because we're going to have to check it. We have to read him. The first covenant was not faultless, not because of any defect in the law, but because of the weakness of those who received it. They're all disagreeing with modern day Christianity. Your fathers, you're not even following in the footsteps of Scripture, number one, and the fathers. Theodoret of Cyrus, in his commentary on Hebrews, Theodoret writes, the fault lay not with the lawgiver or the law, but with those who received it. Same thing. They agree. I'm done, y'all. I think I just chopped off the legs of this idea, these ideas that say that the covenant, the old covenant, written in stone, is done away with. And that the new covenant has replaced it. And that Matthew 5 and 18 should be taken literal instead of as an idiom. I think I've showed and proved thoroughly. Could I have gone more? Could I have gone deeper? Absolutely. I can go deeper. But this is just this is an introduction. And I really, guys, I'm praying that we will once and for all settle the issue of the law's role in modern day believers' lives. Blessings and shalom. Questions, comments? Any questions, any comments? Blessings and shalom. Shabbat shalom.